Okay, movies. What was that about movies again? There was something about movies that I could never quite place. This weird thing about movies that I was trying to get to, but ultimately, but ultimately, but ultimately, but ultimately, but ultimately, Okay, movies. What was that about movies again? There was something about movies that I could never quite place. This weird thing about movies that I was trying to get to, but ultimately, but ultimately, but ultimately, but ultimately, but ultimately, but ultimately.
Okay, truth in movies, people. This is a movie. Here's truth. Okay, just give me a bit of time. I'm really hungry. I just bought lots of apples to make more apple mousse. Hey, how do you make apple cider? Yeah, I don't really want to drink lots of alcohol any longer. Hello and welcome to my mess. Just have to move things around a little. I was just thinking about I could actually leave the house, but I think I just want to stay in because I'm rendering, I'm making videos, I have lots of art to finish. It just seems to me my reality at the moment. And then occasionally I will probably do like random things. Yeah, I have a new light. Replaces the, just a light bulb. So this for me now is a bit of, I actually saw myself doing this. This is the crazy part. I saw myself doing this, but I didn't want to do this. So I also still have to do dishes. I have done most of them already. I have gotten better in lots of ways. I think, yeah, it's probably better to wash these. But when you get to this place where you're just really lazy, you just think, yeah, I'm just gonna do it like this. But now you want to make a meal, you actually have to take the time. Okay, I'm trying to talk now about truth in movies. And because I'm making it a habit to simply talk about the stuff while I'm doing things that I'm doing anyway, because I simply do not see myself as being able to just solely focus on what people think, I should be doing. But for this, I also have to, in a way, get ready for this. Yeah. If you must know, yeah, I'm just going to keep the hat on. I was trying to see myself No. I was walking here from the shops. I mean, I just bought 5 of these bags of apples for €2.50, man. But now I also have to make apple mousse. I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I feel like I'm doing a bit better. Just in case, you know, the struggle was getting a bit overwhelming. So it's nice that I have a couple of things out of the way now. Yeah. Okay, truth in movies. Okay, on the way here it said, you know, do you believe in coincidence? And then I was looking around and I saw nothing. And I thought, what does it mean? Do you believe in coincidence? I mean, who was even saying that? That was just this voice in my head saying this. I don't know, man. Yeah, I actually do. I do believe in coincidence. Because there are things where I just didn't know it would happen. And nobody else knew it would happen. And I actually like believing in coincidence because, you know, if you think fate is real, it's like why even choose, right? Because if fate was real, then you'd have to do nothing. It would just happen by itself. So my choices would be completely, whatever I choose would be meaningless. And that is this kind of idea I'm really struggling against. Because if all my choices have already been predefined, I think this is just something that you think about in your mind. I mean, I think you can make a difference by actively choosing, because I could see different scenarios unfolding in front of me, but I did choose certain things. And whatever that means, that's just the choices that I made. And so I'm choosing now to actually just put them in the oven. Simply because I feel a bit lazy about washing them. I mean, to me, I think it's okay. I mean, they probably get washed before they get shipped out. And if not, then it's already in the skin anyway, so I have a good feeling about just eating it like this. So, truth in movies is probably a really fickle thing, because you're looking at a story and you're trying to find truth in it. But of course, it's a bit like truth in books, of course. You kind of look at what you're seeing, and then you're trying to determine, first of all, what it is you're seeing, and then second of all, how does it relate to your situation? Because what truth ultimately boils down to is just a reflection of whatever you have in your own life. Because truth is, in essence, it's just like claiming that's how it is, but it's never exactly this way. Just it appears to be that way for some time. Why am I doing this now? Can you remind me why am I doing this now? Am I just showing how much I can struggle? Am I just keeping myself from sinking into I hate this? But I'm just seeing my way towards this could actually be a worthwhile experience. Yeah, I was gonna put this in half an hour. And now I just saw my way forward into, I'm not gonna sit here like I have to eat something, just something small now. I'm just gonna make this a meal. Yeah, I'm just reconstructing everything. Plus I also like a bit of a mess, but if you are living in a mess for too long, it's advisable to change it. This is a grapefruit. Some people always tell you how to do things, right? They say this is how you should do it. It's like the British, they eat grapefruit by, you have to, you cut it in half and then you have a special spoon to eat it. I just peel it and eat it. Then they say, yeah, but the skin is really bitter. Yeah, I actually like bitter, man. What? I hate bitter. I just eat it because it's healthy. Why are you doing that for? I mean, of course I eat it because it's healthy, but I really like the taste. I love grapefruits. There's even days where I would pick, what does it mean? There's even days where I would choose grapefruit over orange. Actually, most days. I really like grapefruit, and that also comes from acknowledging the fact that bitter is actually good. That there's actually something to, right? That if you never eat bitter, that your spirit is actually doing, that it's actually doing harm. It's harmful to your right? Some people, they just want to have fun all the time, and it's very bad craftsmanship on realizing your dream to just focus on fun. Fun is like driving around in a car, yeah, and you'll get used to sitting like that. I'm also slouching off in certain ways, giving into the melodrama of there are things missing in my life. Well, then fill it with something. And probably where you are at is like, what am I supposed to do? What am I gonna do with my life? I feel so miserable. I think I should let go of watching movies, but I like movies so much. I could never let go of them. Welcome to my world. Now I'm at the point where I actually choose a lot of other things over movies. Because what I started to realize is that, I have watched already all the movies that I wanted to watch. I recently watched all the Ghibli movies again. First I watched the ones I had on DVD, and then I watched the others kind of like on streaming. You could say that. Well, archive.org. It's like streaming it directly to my laptop and then watching it from there without internet. It's like indirect streaming, you may say. So now I'm in this position where I have actually picked up enough things that I can do. And then actually not miss movies so much anymore. I mean, I was actually worried about this, that I would now you're kind of enlightened, or you have had several realizations in your life, and you were shining light on, the direction your life was going, and you thought to yourself, well, do you want to stuck at feeling you want to watch all the movies that you like to watch and then just keep watching them, and then your family has to watch them, and your wife has to watch them, and your children have to watch them? Why not watch them often enough until you feel satisfied and just look at, well, what were you actually looking for? Well, and what you then find is, well, I was actually looking for life in a certain way. I was actually looking for life that's what I wanted. You know, I wanted to live, and so I watched, right, Princess Mononoke, Ashitaka struggling, and then, you know, never really having, you know, the ending of Princess Mononoke was so lame. When it kind of ends at, yeah, we cannot love each other. You know, humans have done too much to us. What the fuck are you talking about? Just have children and teach them your way. I mean, that's how it should be. You say, hey, you know, let's be hopeful. Let's, you know, have a bit of squeaky time, you know, and then just have children. And then we teach them how we would like to live. I mean, that's how it should be. You know, there's probably going to be some things, but most of the stuff I'm going to teach my children is the stuff that I figured out for myself. Because, I don't know, I could only learn from my parents. Right, whatever they came up with. But you also have to go with the times. So I was being raised into a world that was already different from the world my parents were raised in. And so now I have to look at the state of affairs, work stuff out for myself, and just see how to continue. And some people, they always think, yeah, certain things have to be this way, and I simply say, why? We just couldn't do it any different. I mean, if we would have known how stupid we are, you know, we would have never done this, but it was our own ignorance that led to the choices that we made. So, we were just being prepared inadequately, because that's what kind of like modern life may be about. I don't think anything that happened in my life had to be this way. It just turned out to be like this because of everything that happened before, and now you just have to suffer the consequences, right? And then you just keep going. So what's romance? You like each other? You want to prove it to each other for the rest of your lives? Well, do it. I mean, there's people that rather have like, I don't know, like three-way relationships. Terrible. Really terrible. I mean, for me. But then other people, they like to live this like, oh, let's just live this open love. Yeah. I don't know. I always get to this point where it just turns from I actually like talking to why am I still talking? I think what used to be a movie was just a nice time to just let something else do the talking. But in later years, I actually really enjoyed just watching movies on my own. And also re-watching a lot of the movies that I watched as a child. Just to see what I have been taught And for instance, I remember very vividly, I mean, I'm not advertising psychedelics, I'm just saying there was a time where I was working with psychedelics. But, I mean, you have to know what you're doing, so be self-responsible. This may also be talking to people who have had experiences on psychedelics and now try to figure out what the meaning is, right? So, I'm never going to tell anyone to do anything. I just have to say that you should never feel inclined to do ayahuasca or to do whatever. But if you, it's like, if it hits your spot and you say, damn it, I already felt like I wanted to do this. Now he talks about it, I feel like this again. Well, it's certainly a challenge. I can tell you from today's perspective, it's not really that necessary. Plus, depending on who's holding the ceremony, I mean, if you have a good feeling, go for it. But it may also be terrible, because in the end, what really helped me was actually just the bitter. Because the DMT you just have in your body, you don't actually, and that's what I truly believe in the sense, they could have just, told me to eat more bitter, because that's what ayahuasca ultimately is. It's just a lot of bitter. And now comes the realization I've had, you're psychedelic, man. The way I felt on ayahuasca is just how I feel basically most of the time. And you just stop eating so much sugar, stop drinking beer, change your diet more to ketogenic, learn to use spices, learn to properly cook, and then simply introduce bitter into your life. And there you will have it. Wow, suddenly I'm like, wow, now I feel like, whoa, that's oneness. Yeah, exactly. And for me, an organic sulfur helped a lot. So how many movies have you watched that actually guided you to do this? I mean, even really spiritual movies, right? That told you just eat more bitter, just go hiking more, just pick something creative and do it. Movies are also like artistic ways to express something. But then you watch movies like Passengers, you can get certain truths about the world that you were born into, or the circumstances under which certain movies have been produced. You can get that from movies, certainly. But there are limits to the relevance of the stuff that you're seeing, because what you also have to acknowledge and realize, and this can actually be a fun exercise. Let's say you're watching a movie like Passengers, right? This like weird romance with the kind of like shadow twist. I'm waking up the prettiest girl I can find. And then she finds out. Well, so it's better to look for a partner that's already awake. Or she may hate you for waking her up, I don't know. Anyway, I'm just trying to stick to the story. It's like they're on this ship and they're flying somewhere, probably to Mars, whatever. And what the guy has, like what the ship has, is coffee. Like lots of different versions of coffee. So, I mean, you're flying all the way through the galaxy just to wake up to the same shit you had. So you take what you have and you carry it with you. I mean, that's the mindset of society.
You know, if I go to Mars, I still want to have coffee.
I mean, nobody's going to Mars because to me, Mars doesn't exist. I mean, we are living, you know, this is like shared dreaming. We are sharing the dream living on Mother Nature, on Gaia. And we're trying to get to Mars? I mean, this is where we are, right here. And if you step into a car here, right, somebody else is gonna breathe the fumes. You're gonna breathe the fumes, the toxins of, you know, you driving in the car. It's gonna sink into the soil. There you go. Me producing content for YouTube is going to produce toxins. Toxic waste, all kinds of trash, all kinds of problems for nature. But I feel like it's important to do this because like this I can spread the message. Because I am here, I feel like I need to communicate this. And I have learned so many things about myself and the world I was born into that I simply created a lot of content and kept creating it. And the more I did this, the more stable I became in myself as an individual because of the choices that I made. But I also felt like it wasn't that I had to make the choice like this, it's just I chose to do this, and so I kept going. And so if you watch a movie, so for example, there was a time where I had this girlfriend who just had problems with everything, and usually she pushed it onto me. And I wanted to watch the movie Her. H-E-R. Her. Her. Oh, what? Her. With Joaquin Phoenix. And the voice of, you know, that blonde one from Lost in Translation. And I watched it. And yeah, she didn't want to watch it because she said she could never get over me having watched porn when she wasn't there. Well, if you would have been more of a muse to me, right, and if you would have been more emotionally available and, you know, wouldn't have pushed all your shit onto me, we could have maybe sorted this out. But, I mean, with all the distance, I'm sorry. I'm also struggling, so I'm highly, like, my sex drive is sensational. Which is why I'm so creative, if you get me, because it's like art is like sex, my friend. And so she said, I don't want to watch this. Okay. So a couple of years later, I then watched the movie. And there was nothing to it. I mean, it's like you're watching a movie and you're feeling everything they're feeling. It's like, oh no, oh no, oh no. You know, that's also the truth you find in movies. People are complete idiots. They're watching fake emotions on the screen and then they imitate them. So beautiful. What? Why are people such snifflers? I mean, just go hiking, man. I mean, if you're not struggling enough, you know, in winter, turn off the radiator. You know, that'll give you something to cry. Why am I doing this to myself? I could just keep the radiator on. Yeah, but you turn into a pussy. So maybe start leaving the house more. Yeah, no wonder people are confused about their gender. Because they're watching liars on screen. You know, lying about everything. And everybody copies it. And that's also the truth you find in movies. That actors are paid liars. That lie about who they are. And try to make it as realistic as they can. And the best liar, gets the most money. And, we grow up watching movies and we get used to lying and portraying ourselves as just, looking like I'm adventurous without actually being adventurous. It's like, I'm really adventurous, but you're actually not. How do you know that? Because of the way your voice sounds. I can clearly hear that you've got nothing going on in your life, because you sound like, you grew up in a pink bubble. And that's also the reality that is being created by movies. And then, of course, the weird stuff that, like the gore. Why do we watch this stuff? Look at nature. Why do you have to make it worse than it is? But yeah, it's really hard now because I kind of transitioned away from watching movies slowly but surely. But I have felt emotional watching Only Yesterday, which is a Ghibli movie. I do feel these emotions, and I also, in a way, I would like to watch it again at some point, possibly. But it's also not that necessary. If I have other things to do, which I have worked hard to have actually other things to do, I'd rather do that. But if if I'm getting bored, then I'll watch movies. But normally, if you're living, you should just live. But if I'm missing out on stuff, one reason I still keep clinging to watching porn in a way is because there's just no sex in my life. And I just miss that. I just live in seclusion all the time. So no wonder there's a lot of pressure. And there's also a lot of pressure on me as an individual simply because of the things I have said and the things I have done just to communicate how I feel and how life actually is. Because I'm not the only one who feels that way. I'm just expressing it in all kinds of ways. And so, truth in movies is usually... Okay, it's really hard. This is super interesting. Because I can guarantee you that if I would have recorded this 8 months ago, I would have told you how great it is and you can watch a movie. And then you find all this truth in there, and then you think, forget it, man. Just stop watching movies. Because, a movie is just a distraction from what's actually happening. While you're sitting around watching a movie, there's people struggling heavily with depression. There are people being, polarized against each other. I don't know, there's greedy people making schemes against you. You actually have no time to watch movies because it's your life. You just sit there looking at a screen while life happens all around you. So, if you really have a hard time, and I'm talking from a place beyond the transition, where I have worked with movies for years, and I simply let go of it bit by bit. So I did not just stop watching movies, I just kept going back to it until I felt more and more that now I have, enough other things. I have so many things to do that are really creative that there's no point in watching movies anymore. Plus, I'm just making movies all the time. And one thing I also don't like is if I watch a movie, it kind of impacts the way I create content. And I like to keep others' creations out of what I'm doing. Plus, I just have so much to do. I mean, if I really get bored and I feel like I think only this movie could help me now, I'll watch it. But I have the feeling I will have a lot of stuff to do. But I also wanted to have a lot of stuff to do because life was boring. So I simply had to get better at being who I am and remembering actually, what it is that I can do so that I would just be more active and creative. And a lot of that was, this is really unexpected, by the way. Because a couple of days ago I have watched only yesterday and Arietti. That's okay, that's not a couple of days ago because time's relative and that was just an eternity. But technically, 2 weeks ago I probably watched Arietti. But somehow I feel like I watched it and I felt more complete. That's just a weird thing. I felt more complete. And now there's this ridiculous question. Do you believe in coincidence? Like, what does that even mean? Believe in coincidence, like, how does it stand in relation to what's happening in my life at the moment? Just makes no sense. And in the end, it's always nothing's gonna happen. That's what has been happening for the last couple of years. Basically, nothing has actually ever happened out of the ordinary. Everything that happened was kind of like predictable. And even if something kind of like unpredictable would happen right now, I feel like, well, I know my life, I know the possibilities. I think there's almost nothing that could happen that would shake me up so much. Because I have already prepared myself for lots of possibilities. It's like I have already sat with how I would feel like, if like one day your parents will simply cease to exist. They will leave, they will die. I have already dealt with my concepts of death, that it's simply a necessary step in one's life, that it will happen at some point. When it will come, I think the greatest shock is always also how other people feel about it, and this drama that people sometimes try to create holds people sink into. So I have no time in that sense to still sit around and watch movies anymore, because I have watched movies and I have found a lot of truth. Like, I don't know, like Nightmare Alley, the relationship to the father, and then, what shame gets you to do. But also how important it is to just, find peace in yourself. And for that I have revisited the movies that were important to me once. I recently watched Kroll, Your Name, Kimi no Na wa was kind of like an eye-opener to me in terms of oneness and spirituality and feeling others, even from a great distance, like hearing somebody's thoughts. That kind of stuff. Telepathy, shared dreaming. I have usually worked with movies by watching them and then just reflecting on the images, what's the underlying concept. So if you watch something like Jurassic Park, okay, then what's the underlying concept? I mean, that's just human meddling. You cannot control nature. You know, nature finds its own way. Once you create something, you don't know what road it's gonna take. You know, it's like if I'm creative, making content, I may have an idea where it's gonna go, but I also don't know how the reaction of the people may be towards what I'm creating. So truth in movies, to me, okay, you know, that's just what I got from Jurassic Park. So I have a lot of experience also reflecting and then asking myself riddles. You know, sometimes I would watch a movie and then they would say something or something would happen, and that's my homework. And suddenly something struck in me, like an image came up or a feeling. And I would look at it, I would pause the movie, probably also turn it off, and then work with what I just felt, and then ask myself, okay, what's the meaning of this? What? Yeah, just a second. I am gonna eat. Spinach! But it's already from like a frozen package. Okay. Spinach! And from spinach you can get to spitting image! And then you can say it's a spitting image of yourself. So it's an image of yourself that's spitting at you. Ah! So I just felt my way through. So now I felt like, okay, spinach. And suddenly I'm like, yeah! And I also felt my way through, I want to make this recording now to just get it out of the way. Just do it casual, because that's what I do really good. I just casually tell you that you should work towards never watching movies again. But you still have time, right? Just think of all the movies you would like to watch before, you know, you feel like, I think I've had enough. You know, that's the moment. It's like, wow, I have watched all the movies and I got all the truth. You know, I have the complete set of Hayao Miyazaki's work in my mind because I've watched all these movies, and that's what I wanted. You know, I watched My Neighbors the Yamadas. I found a lot of truth about family, but also how great this movie is. I also deleted a lot of movies. I had some on my hard drive. I threw a lot of movies away. Some I just did not watch again. There was a time where I was quite fond of the Bourne movies, but it's just too much drama. And Hayao Miyazaki, so there are also movies I would still like to watch, which is clearly The Boy and the Heron. It's just so hard to get to it. Like, I would like to watch it in a cinema, but there is just none here in the vicinity that plays the movie. So ultimately, it may either just fall away, or it may become relevant again at a later stage. But if my life will keep me super busy, yeah, I think I will watch it, certainly. Because it looks promising. It has a lot of magic again, which if you compare it to, let's say, The Wind Rises, had a bit less of it. But I still liked it. I really liked also From Up on Poppy Hill. That was a good movie. Usually what was relevant to me in movies were concepts of love, like Dirty Dancing, but also that I always wanted a happy end. But you actually have to work hard to get that. I mean, I always wanted a partner, somebody that can keep up. I wanted someone that only wants me. I still don't know if I actually have found it, because if it's like in a spiritual sense, it often feels like I did. But that's not something you can really get out of movies, because you need real life experience and how it feels like to be really connected to someone and to communicate through telepathy. Movies can only give you an idea, but movies also often miss out on things. So there's movies I have watched and then I have read the books and I realized, wow, there's so much more information in these books. Which is why I like also writing books and getting better at describing the world that I perceive in all kinds of ways. So what else about movies? Well, let's see you watch, how's the movie called with these dinosaurs with Littlefoot? You know, if you work with truth in movies, no, you don't work with like, yeah, it's unrealistic, it could never happen like this. You work with projecting yourself onto what you're seeing, and you see how you feel about it. So, you know what? What touches you the most? What makes you really angry? Like, what kind of emotions? What triggers you, basically? And then you work with concepts. So I've also been watching movies to hone my perspective on life. Just by seeing how others have captured things. And then to intuitively get back into it. what I'm saying is, okay, you're working with a specific concept. Maybe you're working with your ideas on magic. And one way of learning about this is by simply looking at what the concepts of magic are in film history. So there's the movie called Onward. I think that's about these two brothers that go on a quest. But if you watch that and the movie triggers you, then you know, what's your quest? You know, some people, they just kind of like meander through life, you know, jumping from movie to movie, but life should be more, you know. That's why if you just stop following the herd, you know, into whatever they're going, you just live your life a bit more like Twig, you know, from the Edge Chronicles. You just see where you land. You just make a step, you just make a crazy choice, and then you just have to deal with the consequences. And that's what I've been doing. I have made some really crazy choices and just dealt with the consequences. But along the way, as I was trying to still, you know, see where I'm going and what to do, and sometimes I just needed to hold on to who I used to be, to remember where I started from. I just, you know, sometimes I went back to old cartoons I've watched, realized, you know, how it screws up your mind actually. So I also gave myself some slack for having turned out a bit confused and like without a direction, because I mean, my life was a lot of movies already as a child. So I had been raised also in a way as an addict. I mean, it was normal for me to see my parents sitting there just staring at a screen, and I just wanted to get away from that. But with anything, you gotta work with transitions. And while you're working with transitions, you watch the movies you feel like watching and you enjoy it, right? Because you know it's gonna help you in some way. And then you just look at the images that are being projected onto you and you see what's actually happening. Like, what do you actually see in the movie? Like, what do you actually see there? You know, it's like what you're doing in porn. If you want to get rid of watching porn, but you still feel like sucked into it, then you keep watching it to understand it, and that's the road of a shaman. You know, because porn is basically darkness, unconscious pleasure stuff, and so is movies. So you let yourself get drawn into whatever is pulling you, and you just look at it and learn from it. But yeah, that's always also in a way connected to shame. But yeah, sometimes maybe it's necessary. And what I also had with movies is, now there was just something that I felt like I had also in movies. Yeah, sometimes I just needed to relax and let go a little. But then I did it consciously, and I chose the movie like, I need to watch exactly this movie and no other movie. Yeah, you just have to see what's relevant for you in your life. But yeah, I mean, truth you will find simply by accepting that you've been raised this way and that actors are liars. Oh yeah, and that the movie industry is producing a lot of trash. I mean, I worked in one cinema, and this cinema had a huge thing like a trash canister or something. I don't know how you call that. And they every couple of weeks it's just full and goes, and that's like every movie they have on display comes with like posters and banners, and that's all gonna get chucked away in the end. And then you've got all the stuff, the food comes in, the drinks come in, it's all trash. It's all trash. And it's all gonna go to waste, and that is just then one cinema. And that was even a small cinema. Now think of what big cinemas are doing. Just think about it, what big cinemas are doing. How much trash they generate. And then extrapolate it. One cinema, already in this city there's 2 cinemas. In bigger cities there's like maybe 4. And they have lots and lots of movies and posters everywhere. And then that's just one city, and then you've got a whole country, and then you've got a whole nation or whatever. You've got the whole world, how much trash one movie generates. One movie. Plus, we're also working here with stuff like, Macaulay Culkin, Home Alone, that's child labor. You're looking at The Lord of the Rings, the little girl in the 2 towers that's on the horse. That's child labor. And if we're also talking about spirituality, I can feel if people project their anger onto me. Now this child is being exposed to pedophiles, to people who will just love her, who will hate her, and every time somebody sees the child on screen and hates her, the child gets like a stab, because that's voodoo. That's how voodoo works. And so movies are actually a real threat to the conscious mind, and they keep you in like a slumber. Plus the images, it's like, it's not the way reality works like. There's more to it. You cannot get life through a screen. Which is why if you listen to me, do it for a while, but you should always get rid of me as a teaching or whatever. Your life is the best teacher. I'm just your transition to move on from hating it and then finding enough things that you like. So do DIY, learn how to cook, make your own apple mousse, buy apples and make apple mousse, learn crochet, start moving, get going, start hiking, find a real partner, prepare yourself to be family man, a wife, a husband. Learn to love yourself first. Learn to accept yourself first, and then see where you may land. So truth in movies is that movies are a waste of time. But if you feel drawn to movies and you feel like whatever you've discovered you want to share it with movies, then look at movies, learn about camera perspective, learn about concepts, how to portray whatever you find. Like look at Matrix. How did they do it? Like the hidden messages, know thyself, that kind of stuff. This is like what helped some people to wake up, because it's like little clues that help you to keep going. And I think that's what it is about. It's not about saying movies are bad. It's just the way that you've been raised. This is the way things are right now. And just as I can say that, through my studies, because I was mostly alone with everything I did, through my studies I was basically, like porn helped me through my dissertation, because I hated writing it and I was insecure and all of that. But it just kind of gave it a bit of softness, at least, from the harsh reality. until I, had enough experience to then realize, okay, I think that's what I can do actually. Because I always wanted to do something, I just didn't know what. Until I found enough things that I can do, and then I just kept doing them. And now I'm kind of like trying to find the routine and how much is too much, and also what is enough. So movies are one method, but in the end you want your mind clean and open. And movies are just something that can help you to understand, what have you been born into? Because movies are clearly a trap that keep you away from living, and that are supposed to make this shit show that's the industry and stuff like more acceptable, because it's a distraction from the reality. Your energy is being harvested by large corporations that make money with it and destroy Mother Nature. And that's the only real truth you will ever find in movies. But, right, until you can accept this, you may have to watch many movies until you can really let go of them. So to me, I can only say it helped. While I still felt like watching movies, I just kept watching them, but now I have just other things. I have been given other responsibilities. And maybe there are times where I will still watch movies. It's hard to say, but until then, I'll just see. I'm actually glad I came to the realization, because if I would have said that 2 years ago, but what's 2 years ago if you live in the now? I'm trying to explain to you how it is if you're living in the now. Suddenly you just got rid of this urge to constantly watch movies, and you have no idea how you got there. It's just suddenly there, and you're like, what? How is it possible? But it may well be that, later I'm just gonna watch a movie, or I will not do it. The choice is always there. Until nothing else happens. But what I've been trying actually for a long time is I want to transition towards crocheting, doing crochet again. I have not actually crocheted for some time. I don't know, I just feel like I want to do these things first. Because if I introduce too many things, because right now I'm busy with YouTube, right now I'm busy with, still also making art. I have this book that I feel like I need to work on, and then I have daily chores, such as seeing that Christopher gets some food. And then, emotions are never predictable. You may think you're fine now, but maybe in 2 hours you feel so terrible that you feel like, okay, what is this? And then suddenly there's your way through. Okay, I think this movie could help me, just to, because you can be too focused on, now I'm spiritual, I have to get this, I have to be perfect now. I have to immediately stop eating sugar, immediately stop watching movies. I cannot listen to music anymore. I cannot masturbate anymore. I cannot watch porn anymore. I cannot be an asshole anymore. I cannot do this anymore, what do you mean? That's impossible. I've tried, but you also need to take your time with the things that you feel like you actually still want, and that's where being honest comes in, where you say, I actually still feel like watching movies, but I feel like I should not feel like this. But you still feel like it. So maybe you really want to watch Django and Unchained, and maybe you just feel like it now because I just said that. And then you're like, do I actually feel like watching Django Unchained? should I even be allowed? Because it's like weird, like all the blood and the aggression, but also this kind of humor. Well, it's one form of expression. So you can ask yourself, what is he trying to express? I mean, you gotta see it with a bit of humor, whatever is happening right now, because if I sit around and I just say, this is so bad, this is so bad, I'll just hate life. And I've got enough of that, you know. Every car I hear driving down there, it's like, why can't you just be a bird? Right? Why can't you just be a bird? And so I had a time where I thought I have to be vegan or vegetarian, but then I realized, wow, I feel so weak. I think I'm gonna die. And I ate chicken, and suddenly I felt fine. But then I had to work with the shame of having eaten chicken, and that it comes from mass production and how disgusting it is. But the energy I received from the chicken felt actually alright. And I just was craving something like, just needed something like meat. That's why I also just bought some canned sardines and some canned salmon and some cheese, because sometimes I'm thinning out, and then just completely vegan never worked for me. Because also, you know, I was like raised in Germany. It's like, so I feel like, okay, yeah. Because I've got an animal body. And right now there's like lots of meat available. So if I eat it once in a while, but then I have to deal with, you know, how it makes me feel, but sometimes I had moments where it really helped me. And I think that's what Quentin Tarantino is also dealing a bit with, like the viciousness of it all. So yeah, everything has light and shadow, but Hollywood is just trying to act like there's no shadow. But have you seen the children that were child movie stars? They're not doing well, man. It's like spiritual rape, what's happening there. And then you see these incidents where Will Smith comes and, you know, slaps someone on the stage, and then he apologizes afterwards because he's so afraid of what he just did. Oh, how could I have done this? Yeah, you should have just left and never came back. But I like the intention. I want the glory. I want the glamour. It's like, I want the worship. Yeah, but you're creating fake stuff that's just toxic and poisonous. And that's the truth. You could have done this a bit different. You know, you could have said, okay, I've been in Hollywood now, but I actually want to stuck with it. So you could also make a documentary about it or just write books about it, and then Hollywood's just gonna say, yeah, he's chickening out. He couldn't stand it any longer, or whatever. But you know why you're doing it. I mean, I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's just a hard-earned truth. And so every time I watch a movie, you know, it's like you're watching The Lord of the Rings, and you always see the camera. You never get sucked into the illusion anymore. You always see the camera. So you cannot forget any longer that it's all fake. And then you see the movie crawl, and you think, this guy would have never survived in nature, because he's just an actor, you know, like shaved beard, and even after 4 weeks of journeying, you know, his beard is still the same length. It's unnatural. It has nothing to do with the real world. Nothing. It's just about how it looks like, but underneath it's just all the shit. All the shit. And then I don't know what Leonardo DiCaprio did or did not do, but all I know is that it's not really an achievement to just act like that. Like, you know, you can learn stuff by heart, crawl out of some kind of like mud hole, because you know somebody's gonna, you know, wrap you into a heated blanket and give you a coffee, a caramel latte afterwards. You're not actually struggling for your life. So if you then in the end, you know, make a movie about elephants, it's just like greenwashing. Because your movies create so much waste. I mean, it's ridiculous. Plus, what do you need all the money for? I mean, on the one hand, you're making it more toxic, and then you're like, oh, but I'm super good. It's just an image. You're just creating an image so that people like you, so that they want to see you more on the screen. Because they think, oh yeah, but he also did that. Yeah. And have you seen how much trash Hollywood produces? Yeah. And what's with all the stuff you never hear about? You know? Well, you never hear about it. I don't know. People dying that's been covered up. All the horses that died in Lord of the Rings. Lots of horses. Did they eat the meat at least? Probably not. You know, like riding with the horse really hard, you know, pulling it around and let it fall. Like lots of people, lots of horses just died. I mean, how many stuntmen die? And you will never hear about them. But then you hear about how Tom Cruise broke his foot. Who says that it was him? Maybe it was the stuntman. Maybe it was just a stunt to just make publicity for his movie. I mean, oh yeah, did you see what he did? Yeah, he wrote the script himself. I mean, if he would have survived, like, crashing airplane, but then you see, like, Tom Hanks in Castaway, and he's, like, super thin and, like, weather-stained. But he never did any of that. And then he comes out of it, and then for his next role, he's supposed to be more chubby, so he's just gonna gain some weight. It's just meaningless. Something I always, or recently, when I watch movies, I felt like, I think you can see it in these actors. You know, they're like, they have the feeling they're doing something great. But in the end, you know, nothing could matter less. Nothing could matter less than being a part of, like, a movie. But if you like it, do it. But don't tell yourself that it's super important. It's like what I'm doing right now is just because I also want my own life. You know, I also want a bit of freedom in a world that's based on money. And so I am creating content on lots of platforms. And in a way, it is raising awareness for the fact that I have also written books. And that if you like what I'm doing, that you can donate. And then I'm going to put the money to first sustaining myself, but also, that's the idea that I have, creating space for others to live in. Because something has to happen with the money, but you will never know what I'm going to do with it. Because I have to figure it out for myself first. You know? But buying land or houses that already exist and then getting people to live in them, that is certainly one idea. To create space for people to live in freely without worrying, but then like a community. But this may be in 10 years from now. I'm just doing this now, recording all of it, simply because I may be running out of time later. So I'm just working this off now, because I've had visions, and I started acting accordingly. So if you have a vision of yourself having a romantic or a beautiful relationship with a woman and having your own children and stuff, well, then you have to actively learn to engage with yourself, see what you need, and then find a partner that fits to you in your life after your transformation. Or you have a partner that, you know, helps you to go through with it somehow. Well, that's a very rare thing to have, right? Like through thick and thin, how many people are willing to do that? To turn their backs on this kind of society and just focus on their goals. How many people ever actually do that? It's usually people you hear from, like Thomas Edison, you know, he was a creator or an inventor. Yeah, but you also want to invent things that cannot do harm to others. So a lot of people, they invent stuff without thinking about the consequences. So yeah. Now I'm going to eat. And I'm going to try to figure out what to do next. Prepare myself for eventualities. Because if you do meet the woman or man of your dreams, you want to be ready. So work with your ideas of children. You can do that through movies. You can look at how children are being portrayed or treated in movies, and then you can just learn from that, but you can also just observe it in real life. And that's the harsh reality. But, like I said, I always felt drawn to movies, but I also felt like at some point I would like to let go of it. Because in the end, it's also a lot of marketing, it's a lot of manipulation, it's a lot of like nonsense. But you can also, if you say, I actually want to make movies, you can shake up things a little. But then just stay true to yourself, maybe a bit like Wes Anderson, and never get drawn into hypes. Just stick with what you would like to show. You need a message, and that message you will get better at communicating. And then you can look at the messages others have. Well, Quentin Tarantino's message seems to be we live in a violent world. And he seems to have problems to take like true beauty seriously, or balance or harmony. And that's just a reflection of himself. So with me, it's often a lot like everything comes and goes in waves. So I'm also often serpentining my way through these topics until I get to some kind of like conclusion. Because to me, everything is like comes and goes in waves, and I'm an Aquarius, which may be relevant, but I'm also Scorpio in my ascendant, so I'm like, you know, that's like my mind. If you come into my mind and you want to mess around there, it's like, you don't want to know what's hiding in there. Because I know how to protect myself. I have created barriers in my mind. I have created like pitfalls for people. And sometimes people think they can mess around stuff in here. Yeah. You know, better think twice. Better focus on yourself than trying to, screw up my life. Because that already has been screwed up by the people I grew up with, by the people I was raised by, and I simply said no to that. And the rest, I just have to see now what I'm going to do with my time. find something. I don't know. I'm not that interested in reading books anymore. I'm not that interested in watching movies anymore. I feel like I just want to live. I just want to be with people in a way, just see what I can do, how I can contribute. And at the moment, I have to raise awareness, make sure that the content keeps coming, and just keep, figuring it out. Figuring it out, figuring it out.